Sometimes the loudest cry is the one you can't hear. It was almost midnight at Seattle's Crownview Medical Complex, the kind of place that looked like hope from the outside, but felt like a broken promise on the inside. The hallways were too clean, too bright, too quiet, like they were trying too hard to hide the pain inside them. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in form? We love seeing how far our stories travel. We love you to subscribe our channel for more interesting single dad stories. And tonight, Payne sat in room 503. She was Mercy Hale, daughter of legendary tech mogul Rowan Hale, inventor of software that practically ran half of America's businesses. She had everything, until the accident that took away the one thing money couldn't buy back: sound. She wasn't just deaf, she was done. Done trying, done fighting, done pretending she wasn't drowning inside her own silence. And tonight she lost her last bit of fight. She sat by the window in her wheelchair, hands clenched, shoulders trembling. Tears streamed down her face, but she made no sound. Because when your world is silent, your pain is too. Down the hall, Jonas Carter, an exhausted hospital orderly, single dad, and the last guy you'd expect to be in a billionaire's story, was clocking out late. His feet hurt, his back hurt, his mind hurt. All he wanted was a shower and a slice of leftover pizza. But fate doesn't care about pizza. As he walked past the private wing, he saw her through the glass, not crying like the others. Not sad, not scared, she was collapsing, quietly, invisibly, like someone who wasn't just heartbroken, like someone who didn't plan to be here tomorrow. Jonas froze. He'd seen grief, he'd seen anger. But this was vacancy. Like her spirit had already packed its bags. She's gone, he whispered to himself, even if she's still here. He almost walked away. Heck, it wasn't his job. He wasn't a doctor, therapist, or miracle worker. But then, like a movie scene his life had built up to, he remembered his mom's voice. "Baby, silence doesn't mean nothing is being said. It just means nobody's listening right." His mom, Caroline Carter, had been deaf since she was 4. Raised Jonas using sign language, teaching him that you don't need ears to hear someone's pain, you just need heart. And tonight, Mercy Hale needed someone who didn't listen with ears. Jonas didn't knock, didn't announce himself. He just walked in slowly, gently, like someone stepping into a church. Mercy jerked, startled, her eyes wide. That look people get when they expect pity, but Jonas didn't speak. He signed, "I see you," her breath caught. No nurse had signed, no doctor had signed. Nobody had tried her language. His hands kept moving, slow and steady. "You are angry, you are scared, you think nobody understands." Her tears stopped. Her eyes changed. And in that moment, Jonas realized something. She wasn't just deaf. She was unseen, forgotten. He signed again, "But I hear you." Mercy stared at him, shaking, not from sadness, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Just then, the door flew open. Rowan Hale, her father, the billionaire, the legend, exploded into the room like a storm in a suit. "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing with my daughter?" Mercy looked from Jonas to her father, and for the first time in months, she signed a word back. "Stay," even though she didn't speak it. The whole room heard it. What happens when a billionaire's broken daughter asks a hospital nobody to save her, without saying a single word? When that one signed word, "Stay," left Mercy's trembling hands, the room froze like time itself hit the brakes. Rowan Hale, the billionaire who owned half the tech patents in Seattle, stopped mid-fury. He had stormed in ready to throw Jonas out onto the street, maybe the entire city. But that single sign from his daughter made him choke on his own anger. She hadn't signed a word in 3 months. Not to nurses, not to doctors. Not even to him, but to this random hospital worker. She signed "Stay." Rowan stepped back slowly, eyes stunned. Mercy wasn't crying now. She was staring at Jonas like he wasn't just some dude in scrubs. but like he was the first person who actually saw her. Jonas swallowed. He hadn't meant to get involved. He sure wasn't trying to get between a billionaire and his daughter. His entire paycheck couldn't even cover the rims on Rowan's car. But this wasn't about money. It was about a girl on the edge and a moment that couldn't go ignored. He nodded to Mercy, slow, respectful. Then he stood facing Rowan, heart pounding. "My name's Jonas Carter, sir," he said calmly. "I just wanted to help." Rowan didn't answer. He just stared at his daughter, whose eyes weren't empty anymore. They were awake. He turned to Jonas. "Step outside." Well, crap, Jonas stepped into the hallway, bracing himself to get fired, sued, deported to Mars. Who knew? He waited 2 minutes. 5, 10, then the door opened. Mercy Hale stood there, not furious, not arrogant, just tired. "You know sign language," he said flatly, not a question. "Yes," Jonas nodded. "My mom was deaf. I grew up signing before I could even speak." Rowan hesitated. "You walked into that room without asking why?" Jonas thought for a moment. No fancy answer, just the truth. "Because she wasn't crying like someone sad," he said softly. "She was crying like someone disappearing." Rowan froze. That was it. That was the moment. The billionaire didn't speak for a long time. Wealthy men weren't used to being powerless. But money couldn't fix what had broken Mercy. After nearly a full minute, Rowan straightened. "Mr. Carter." "Yes, sir." "My daughter wants to learn sign language. She asked for you." Jonas blinked. "Me?" Rowan's jaw tightened. "You'll teach her privately 3 days a week, 2 hours a session. I'll pay you 4 times your salary here." "Sir, But Rowan wasn't finished. "She doesn't need a therapist. She doesn't need doctors to talk about her." He looked at Jonas, raw and honest. "She needs someone who can talk to her, like a real human being." Jonas didn't know what to say. He wasn't trained for this. He didn't have fancy degrees. He wasn't equipped to save anyone, but Mercy Hale didn't need saving. She needed someone to show her she wasn't alone, and Jonas understood that better than anyone. He took a deep breath. "I'll do it," he said quietly, "but not for the money." Rowan nodded, and for the first time his voice cracked just a little. "Good, because money is the one thing that can't help her." That night, Jonas drove home in his beat-up pickup, hands clenched around the steering wheel, mind spinning. The glowing mansions of the wealthy blurred past him like a different world. He pulled up to Mrs. Holland's house, where his little girl Nora was already asleep. He carried her to the car, and she stirred. "Daddy," she mumbled sleepily. "Yeah, baby. Did you help someone again today?" He looked down at her sleepy eyes, and he thought of Mercy, alone, drowning in silence, whispering hope with just one word. "Stay," he nodded. "Yeah, kiddo, I think I did." What happens when a hospital nobody walks into the world of billionaires and becomes the only lifeline for a girl who has forgotten how to live? 2 weeks later, Jonas's rusty pickup truck looked like a cockroach in a garage full of Teslas, Lincolns, and cars that sounded like they were whispering in French. He tugged at the collar of his decent but cheap shirt. Even his reflection in the Hale Estate's glass door looked nervous. "Bro, you ever walk into a place so fancy it feels like you're trespassing just by breathing?" Yeah, that was Jonas right now. The door opened before he could knock. A tall housekeeper nodded, expression formal. But her eyes softened when she saw Nora's keychain dangling from Jonas's backpack. A little handmade one that read, "You got this, Dad." She led him through hallways that looked like hotel lobbies brought to life by Architectural Digest. White marble, glass walls, indoor waterfalls. The kind of house where you whisper even when you're alone. Finally, they reached the sunroom. That's where she was, Mercy. Not in a hospital gown, not looking broken, but different, still pale, still guarded, still fragile, but more alive than last time. She sat in a wheelchair by huge windows overlooking Puget Sound. Hands folded. Quiet, but present. Rowan stood nearby, trying not to look like a nervous dad who wanted to fix everything immediately with a six-figure check. Jonas walked over slowly. No rush, no pressure. Just two people meeting in silence that didn't hurt as much this time. He knelt again, just like before, and signed slowly, "Hello, Mercy. You ready to begin?" Her eyes flickered. Then hesitantly, she lifted her hands. Her fingers trembled like they weren't used to hope. "I'm scared." She signed, not perfectly, not gracefully, but clearly. Jonas felt something in his chest crack open. He signed back. Being scared means you still care. That's a good thing. Her eyes widened again, shining not with sadness this time, with possibility. For the first time he saw her smile, barely there but real. Thus began lesson 1. Teaching wasn't the hard part. The hard part was teaching someone who thought every step forward was a reminder of everything she'd lost. Mercy's hands hesitated often. She doubted herself more than he could reassure her. She didn't like being watched. She didn't like being seen. But Jonas noticed something. She wasn't frustrated by the signs she didn't know. She was haunted by the idea that none of it would matter. Learning meant planning to live. And she wasn't sure she wanted to, so he didn't teach sign language like a language. He taught it like a lifeline. He taught her, "I am here." He taught her, "I feel." He taught her, "I matter." And finally, he taught her the one sign he knew she needed most. Hope. She stumbled through it at first. Fingers shaking, lips trembling, tears falling. But when she finally got it, she didn't say anything. She just looked at Jonas like she heard something. Not with her ears, but with her heart. The third session broke her, and then it fixed her. They were practicing emotional signs, hurt, angry, frustrated, lost, when Mercy suddenly threw the book across the room. Her hands flew wildly. "I hate this. I hate being like this. I hate that everyone looks at me like I'm breakable." Her breathing turned sharp. Then her signs slowed. And she signed something different. "I hate that I don't feel real anymore." Jonas didn't sign back immediately. He didn't rush to reassure her. He just knelt beside her wheelchair and turned his phone around. It showed a photo. His mother, Caroline, at her sewing machine, smiling. She was deaf since she was 4. He signed gently. She didn't hate her silence. She hated when people assumed it meant nothing was left. She told me, "Losing sound doesn't mean losing life." Mercy stared at the photo for a long time. Then, slowly, she signed, "I want to feel alive again." Jonas looked at her. No sadness, no pity, just pure, fierce respect. Then Mercy, he signed back, "Let's start living again," but feelings weren't supposed to get involved. And neither of them expected what came next. Not from her father, not from the media, and definitely not from their hearts. Over the next few weeks, something strange started happening inside the Hale estate. Lessons weren't just lessons anymore. They became conversations. Silent ones, real ones. Mercy didn't just copy hand shapes now, she used them. She signed jokes, questions, even snarky comebacks. She signed the word "annoying" at Jonas at least 4 times that week, followed by a smirk that made him forget his own name. And Jonas, he couldn't deny it anymore. He didn't look forward to teaching, he looked forward to her. The smirk, the way her eyebrows scrunched when she concentrated, how she signed coffee like it was a curse word. She was alive now, not fully but flickering. And he was afraid to admit it. But she made him feel alive too, just one problem. Feelings weren't part of the job description. Feelings weren't allowed. Feelings were dangerous. Especially when you're just a hospital orderly with a duct-taped truck. And she's the daughter of a man who could buy half of Washington and still have enough left over to purchase Maui. One rainy Tuesday, things changed. They were in the sunroom practicing conversational signs. Mercy signed something different, something he had never taught her. "Why do you care if I get better?" Jonas blinked. Not "how are you?" not "what time is it?" No, she had signed something raw. He responded slowly, "Because you matter." She stared at him, her hand slowly signed to who. That question hit different, not to Dad, not to people. No, to who? To anyone, to someone, to him, he set his notebook down. Signed slowly, to yourself first. Mercy froze, and he let the silence sit. He didn't rush to fill it, didn't try to fix it, he just waited. Finally, she signed, I don't know how. Jonas looked at her, dead serious. I'll help you learn. She blinked rapidly, not crying, feeling. Then, hands awkward, nervous, shaky, she signed back. I want to try. Something cracked open inside both of them, right there, right then. It wasn't love, not yet, but it wasn't nothing either. It was the beginning of something money couldn't buy and silence couldn't erase. They didn't notice Rowan Hale had walked in, but he noticed them. He saw the way Mercy looked at Jonas, not like she looked at therapists, assistants, or even friends. She looked at him like he was real, safe, home. Rowan didn't interrupt. He just watched for the first time in months, not as a CEO, not as a father searching for solutions, but as a father realizing his daughter was finally living again. And the reason wasn't medicine, wasn't therapy, wasn't treatment. It was human, it was simple, it was connection. He walked away quietly, but he didn't walk away unchanged. Somewhere between hello and you matter, they had crossed an invisible line. And feelings don't care about status, or timing, or boundaries. They just grow, quietly, dangerously, beautifully. But not everyone would be okay with this quiet connection. Someone was about to interfere. Someone who believed Jonas didn't belong there, and they were ready to prove it. Sometimes trouble doesn't knock. It walks in wearing cologne and entitlement. Enter Aiden Cross, Mercy's former fiancé, business heir, billionaire family friend, yacht owner, Rolex collector. Probably sleeps on Egyptian cotton and eats confidence for breakfast. He walked into the sunroom like he still owned a place in Mercy's life. Smirking, expensive, untouched by empathy. Mercy stiffened the moment she saw him. She didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't sign hi, just stared, like you stare at a ghost or a mistake. Jonas instantly realized something. Aiden didn't come to visit Mercy. He came to remind her what world she used to belong to. He looked at Jonas the way rich people look at house repair bills, unnecessary and mildly irritating. So, Aiden said coolly, you're the sign language guy? Jonas nodded. I teach Mercy. 3 days a week. Aiden's smile was polite, the kind of polite you could strangle with a napkin. How sweet, he said, voice dripping sugar and insult all at once. A noble hobby. It's his profession, Mercy signed sharply. Aiden didn't know sign language, but tone. He didn't need sign language to feel that tone. He looked at her, offended. You're defending him now? Mercy didn't respond. Jonas noticed. She didn't sign back. She didn't speak. She didn't argue. She just shut down, like someone who had practiced being small in front of this man before. Aiden leaned forward, lowering his voice. You're fragile, he whispered. You need someone who understands your world. Who fits it, you're not. Mercy cut him off, but not with words. She signed one word, clear and sharp. Enough. Aiden frowned. Jonas understood. Mercy wasn't just signing to Aiden. She was signing to her past. Then Rowan walked in. He noticed tension immediately. Everything all right here? Rowan asked carefully. Aiden turned, instantly smiling like the politician he wasn't, but absolutely could be. Oh, yes, sir. Just concerned about Mercy. Mercy's father nodded slowly, but his eyes weren't on Aiden. They were on Jonas. He wasn't worried about Mercy. He was worried about what she was choosing to become, not broken, not weak, not among her appropriate class. Just human. Aiden finally left, but not before pausing at the door to deliver one final low blow to Jonas. You seem like a good guy, he murmured, almost kindly. But let's be real. He straightened his cufflinks. This isn't a fairy tale, man. Billionaire girls don't end up with hospital orderlies. Then, softer, people like you don't get happy endings here. He walked out, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and a truth that stabbed deeper than his insults. Because Jonas had already been thinking the same thing. That night, Jonas didn't sleep. A billionaire's daughter. A single dad in a duct-taped truck. Yeah, who was he kidding? He wasn't her future. He was her temporary matchstick, lighting her world long enough for someone wealthy, appropriate, worthy to show up. He didn't belong, not in that house, not in her world, not in her story. So the next session, he left early. Before she could ask why, before she could sign something he wasn't ready to see. And Mercy? She watched from the window as Jonas Carter walked away, not because he stopped caring, but because caring was starting to hurt. What happens when the person who helped you find your voice starts to pull away from it? Mercy stared at the rain trickling down the giant glass windows of the sunroom. Jonas wasn't late. He just wasn't coming. For the first time since he stepped into her life, silence felt heavy again. Not because she couldn't hear, but because he was missing, and somehow that hurt way more. She waited for 10 minutes, then 20, then 40. And then she made a decision. Mercy Hale wheeled herself out of the sunroom, through the quiet mansion, past her father's surprised expression, and toward the front door. It was time to stop waiting. It was time to search. Across town, Jonas sat in his beat-up truck outside his daughter's school, staring at the phone call he never made. He couldn't explain why he didn't go today. He just knew one thing: feelings were starting to get dangerous. Not for him, for her. Mercy belonged in a world with polished floors and expensive futures. He belonged in a world where you budgeted groceries and hoped your truck held itself together with prayer and duct tape. She deserved healing. He wasn't sure he deserved her, so he chose distance. Goodbye without goodbye, safer that way, right, but why did it feel like crap? Later that afternoon, he pulled up to Mrs. Holland's place to pick up Nora. He didn't expect to see a black SUV parked outside. He definitely didn't expect to see Mercy Hale standing outside his truck, looking directly at him, soaked in rain, hair dripping, hands trembling, eyes furious. He froze, he didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. She walked right up to him. Face inches from his, no fear, no hesitation. She signed slowly, her movements sharp, strong, intentional. "Why did you leave?" he swallowed. His hands lifted almost automatically. "You don't need me anymore." She signed back so fast he barely kept up. "Don't decide what I need, that's my choice." There it was, not fragile, not broken, not weak, but fire. Angry, emotional, alive, she kept signing, hands shaking. "You said I matter, but you walked away. That hurts worse than silence." Jonas felt his chest tighten. He stepped closer, not thinking, just feeling. His hands signed hesitantly. "I got scared." Mercy's anger softened instantly. He continued, "I'm just a guy trying to make ends meet. I drive a truck that threatens to quit daily. My paycheck barely covers Nora's school supplies. I fix stuff instead of replacing it. I don't fit your world." He signed slower, more raw, more exposed. "People like me don't end up in houses like yours, or hearts like yours." Mercy's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry, not this time. She stepped closer, their hands trembling inches apart. Then she signed something he never expected. "I don't need someone who fits my world. I need someone who sees me in it." He froze. She wasn't just signing words. She was signing truth. Honest. Real, human. Then, with hands trembling, "You showed me how to live again, but you forgot one thing: you taught me how to fight back. Now I'm fighting for you." Silence. But this silence wasn't empty. It was full of something new. Something real, something neither of them could ignore anymore. And then a tiny voice broke the moment. "Daddy!" They both turned. Nora stood on the porch, holding a cookie, smiling at Mercy like they were already family. Mercy smiled back. Not politely, not carefully, but like someone whose heart just made a decision. A real one. The walls were finally down, but Mercy wasn't the only one searching for something real. Someone else had questions. Someone who wore Italian suits and wasn't ready to let go so easily. It had been 3 days since Mercy showed up outside Jonas's house in the rain. 3 days since she looked him in the eye and signed, "I'm fighting for you now." He hadn't slept right since. Not because he was stressed, but because, for the first time, hope felt real. On the fourth morning, a black town car pulled up to the hospital where Jonas was finishing his shift. He stepped outside carrying a mop bucket, wearing scrubs faded from too many washes, when a man stepped out of the car. Rowan Hale, Mercy's father, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Jonas's truck and last month's rent combined. He didn't yell, didn't glare, didn't look arrogant. He just said, "Walk with me." Which, let's be honest, sounds terrifying when a billionaire says it. They walked along the side of the hospital toward the little garden where nurses ate lunch. Rowan stopped near a bench. His voice was calm, too calm. "You know who I am," he said. "You know what kind of world I come from." Jonas nodded. "You know what kind of world you come from?" That one stung, but Jonas nodded anyway. Rowan looked at him, really looked, not at his scrubs, not at his worn-out shoes, not at his paycheck status. At him. Then he asked, "Do you love my daughter?" Jonas froze. He had practiced 100 careful answers. But none of them matched what the moment demanded. So instead, he answered honestly. "Yes, sir, I do." Rowan didn't look surprised. He didn't get angry. He didn't even blink. He just asked quietly, "Then why didn't you say it earlier?" Jonas swallowed. "Because I didn't want her to choose me when she was broken." Silence. Then Rowan nodded. He understood, more than Jonas expected. "Good answer." He sat down on the bench, almost tired, almost just a dad. "You know what the hardest part was when Mercy lost her hearing," Rowan said softly. "Wasn't the doctors, wasn't the physical pain. It was the world. The world kept treating her differently," he continued. "Like she was weak, like she was broken, like she was less. But you didn't try to fix her, you didn't try to heal her. You didn't pity her." Rowan looked him dead in the eye. "You saw her." Jonas didn't speak. Couldn't. Rowan stood, and for the first time he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a father trying to choose hope. "Jonas," he said quietly, "my daughter is not fragile, she is fierce, she is stubborn, she is flame." He paused. "And I have a feeling so are you." Jonas finally spoke. "I don't have fortune, I don't have a title. I don't have anything fancy to give her." Rowan looked at him, stern but warm. "Then give her something better." Jonas swallowed. "What's that?" "A life she can feel real in." Then Rowan did something Jonas would never forget. He held out his hand and said, "Welcome to the fight, Mr. Carter." That night, Jonas drove to the Hale estate. Not as a teacher, not as an employee, not as a guest, but as something new. Mercy met him at the door. This time, no hesitations. She didn't sign hello, she signed something else. One word, one truth, stay. He didn't answer with signs, he answered by stepping inside. But love wasn't the only thing growing between them. Healing was happening. Trust was blooming. A family was forming. And just when Mercy thought life was finally finding its rhythm, a surprise walked through the door. Kids don't ask for permission to change your life. They just do. It was Saturday morning when Rowan Hale invited Jonas and Nora to the estate. No business talk, no lessons, just brunch. Which in billionaire language meant food that looked too fancy to actually eat. Nora, wearing a sparkly pink jacket and mismatched socks, with zero shame, walked through the Hale mansion like she owned the joint. Mercy was waiting in the sunroom, but this time she wasn't in a wheelchair, she wasn't pale, she wasn't distant, she looked alive. Nora ran to her. "Hi, Mercy," she yelled, forgetting Mercy couldn't hear. But Mercy didn't flinch, she grinned. And signed back smooth, confident, natural. "Hello, Nora, I missed you." Nora gasped dramatically. "You talk with your hands just like me?" Mercy laughed, really laughed, and nodded. Nora turned to Jonas. "Daddy, she talks with her heart hands now?" Heart hands. Yeah, that's exactly what she did. Over the next hour, something magical happened, not dramatic, not loud, just real. Mercy made pancakes, with Nora sitting beside her giving expert advice like she was the CEO of Breakfast Inc. Too many blueberries, Nora warned. Impossible, Mercy signed back with sass. Then Rowan walked in, just in time to see Mercy flick whipped cream at Nora. The billionaire, the legend, the man with stock in half of Washington state belly laughed, like an actual human being, and Jonas saw it. This wasn't just healing, this was living. And for the first time, Mercy didn't look like a girl recovering from trauma. She looked like a sister, a daughter, a teacher, a friend, maybe even a mother. Later, while Mercy and Nora painted cookies in the sunroom, Jonas stepped into the hallway and found Rowan standing there, watching quietly. "What do you see, Jonas?" Rowan asked. Jonas paused. "I see two people who don't care about what they lost," he said softly. "They're too busy building what they have." Rowan nodded slowly. "She doesn't smile like that with anyone else," he said. "Not even me." Jonas didn't answer. He didn't need to, because Rowan wasn't just noticing Mercy. He was noticing Nora, how Mercy watched her, how naturally she cared for her, how love didn't always show up the way you expect it to. Sometimes it arrived wearing sparkly socks. Meanwhile, inside, Nora and Mercy were decorating cookies, which in their definition meant creating sugar carnage. But then from nowhere, Nora got quiet. She looked at Mercy. Serious. More grown-up than 6 years should allow. She signed slowly, clumsily, but clear. "Do you love my dad?" Mercy froze. Her hands hovered in midair. She didn't expect that. She looked toward the door, almost as if Jonas might walk in. But he didn't, so she looked at Nora and signed, "Yes, more than I thought I could." Nora watched her for a moment and then smiled the kind of smile that made Mercy's heart exhale. She reached out and leaned her head gently against Mercy's shoulder. Mercy didn't need to hear it. She felt it. "You're allowed to stay." Mercy closed her eyes, and for the first time in her entire life, she didn't feel like the billionaire's daughter, or the broken girl, or the patient. She felt like family. Then suddenly a sharp knock echoed through the hallway. A voice, cold, poised, calculated, rang out from the entrance. "Mercy Hale, my name is Dr. Carrington. I'm here for your evaluation. Your father requested a full review of your mental and emotional progress." The warmth shattered. Nora looked at Mercy. Mercy looked toward the door. Fear flickered, because this wasn't a doctor checking recovery. It was an assessment, a decision, one that could determine her future, freedom or supervision, her life or her limitations. And in that moment, she didn't sign, she didn't move. She just whispered a word she hadn't used in nearly a year. "I'm not ready." Jonas heard it, even without sound, and stepped forward without hesitation. Because now they weren't just fighting for her healing, they were fighting for her future. Dr. Evelyn Carrington didn't smile when she entered the room. People like her didn't need to. Power, authority, and judgment. They walked in before she did. She carried a tablet, a clipboard, and a reputation for telling rich families what they didn't want to hear. "Good morning, Mercy," she said in a slow, professional tone, the way people talk to someone they've already labeled fragile. Mercy stiffened. Jonas stood near the window, hands folded, trying to read the room. Rowan stood near the door, looking like a man who could buy the world, but couldn't buy this moment. Dr. Carrington didn't waste time. Her words were cold, calculated, sharp. "Mercy, our goal today is simple. We're assessing your mental and emotional autonomy." Simple? It wasn't simple. This was a test, and Mercy knew it. It would decide whether she'd be seen as a capable adult with a future or a condition to be managed. The room felt like a courtroom, and Mercy felt like the defendant. The questions began. "Have you experienced emotional detachment? Do you believe your silence represents anxiety, resistance, or apathy? Do you rely on others for basic emotional regulation?" Mercy tried to answer with signs. But Dr. Carrington didn't fully understand. And even when she did, she didn't believe it. Mercy's hands shook, not because she didn't know the answers, but because she wasn't sure anyone really wanted to hear them. Then the doctor asked, "What kept you alive through the worst months of your trauma?" Mercy froze, her heart pounded. She could answer, but her voice didn't work, her signs didn't feel strong enough. Silence pressed in just like it used to. And suddenly she felt like room 503 again, trapped behind soundproof glass. Alive but unreachable. Then something happened. Jonas, who hadn't said a word all session, stepped forward. He didn't touch her, didn't rush. Didn't rescue, he just stood beside her. Silent, steady, present. Mercy looked at him, not for answers, for permission. Permission to use her voice, even if it didn't make sound. She took a breath, and slowly her hands began to move. Not shaky, not hesitant, but clear, strong. I didn't survive because of medicine or therapy. I survived because someone looked at me and didn't see broken, didn't see fragile, didn't see patient. He saw me. The room went silent. Not empty silent, powerful silent. Mercy continued. He didn't try to fix me. He taught me how to speak without sound and live without fear. He taught me that I still have a voice, even if nobody hears it. Her hands stopped. Her eyes didn't. Dr. Carrington studied her, but not like a patient, like a woman, a whole human being, and her voice, for the first time, softened. "Who is this person you mention?" she asked. Rowan stepped forward, but Jonas didn't. Because this moment wasn't his to take. Mercy turned, looked Jonas straight in the eye, and signed him. The doctor followed her gaze, and something changed in her expression. She didn't smile, but her eyes did. Then she closed her tablet, stood, and said, "My report." She glanced at Rowan. "Your daughter does not need protection." Jonas held his breath. Dr. Carrington's words were slow, sure, strong. "She needs partnership." Rowan covered his face. Mercy covered her smile. And Jonas covered absolutely nothing. He just let the moment hold him. But moments don't last forever. And life has plot twists. Later that evening, after the evaluation, after the victory, after the tears, Mercy finally found Jonas alone. Outside, by the terrace, watching the sunset, she didn't sign hello, she just whispered, soft, uncertain, real. "What happens now?" He looked at her, at the woman who wasn't broken, wasn't fragile, wasn't just recovering, but living. He stepped closer, not with hesitation, but with clarity. "Now," he said softly, "we stop surviving." He held her gaze, "and start building." Their hearts were ready. Their families were watching. Their silence had become their language. And now it was time for something new. It wasn't a grand ballroom wedding. No chandeliers, no glittering stage, no orchestra playing love songs like in the movies. Instead, it was the backyard of the Hale estate. Soft lights strung through the trees, paper lanterns swaying in the wind. A small wooden arch wrapped in wildflowers, no noise, but more love than any room could hold. Mercy stood under that arch, no wheelchair, no fear, no silence holding her hostage. She was barefoot, hair loose, hands calm, alive. Jonas stood on the other side, tie crooked because Nora tied it, nerves wild, heart full. He wasn't dressed like someone marrying into a billionaire family. He was dressed like a man choosing love, simple, real, honest, just like him. There were only 11 guests. Rowan Hale, no longer the guarded billionaire, but a proud dad who kept pretending he had something in his eye. Mrs. Holland, who kept whispering, "Finally," like she had written this story herself. Nora, the flower girl, ring bearer, dance coordinator, cupcake inspector, and emotional support human. And Mercy, she didn't need an audience, she just needed them. The efficient, assigning pastor smiled and began, not with words, but with hands. Today is not about sound. It is about meaning, about promises spoken through movement and love written in silence. Jonas took Mercy's hands. He didn't speak his vows. He signed them, slow, strong, clear. "I walked into your silence, and you taught me how loud love could be." Mercy's eyes filled, but not from sadness, from memory, from healing, from recognition. Jonas continued. You weren't broken. You were just waiting for someone to listen without needing sound. Mercy didn't blink. She was afraid the moment would disappear. He signed the last part slowly. Hands steady, heart steady, you don't need ears to hear me. You don't need words to love me. My heart speaks your language, always has, always will. And even though the world couldn't hear it, it was the most beautiful vow ever spoken. Then Mercy signed hers. Her hands didn't shake, not once. You didn't rescue me. You reminded me that I was never lost. Jonas swallowed hard. Mercy stepped closer. When I stopped believing in sound, you taught me to believe in feeling, in hope, in connection, in us. She moved closer. Tears finally spilling. You didn't just show up, Jonas, you stayed. Rowan finally cried. Even Mrs. Holland had no napkins left. And Nora? She leaned over and whispered to her grandpa Rowan, Daddy's heart is talking. Mercy signed the final words, not dramatic. Not perfect, but absolutely final. I used to be scared of silence. Now I call it home, because it led me to you. Silence fell, not empty, holy. When the officiant finally signed, you may kiss your bride, Mercy didn't wait. She pulled Jonas in not just for a kiss, for a promise. A beginning, not a perfect life, not a quiet life, just a real one, a heard one, even without sound. Months later, Mercy's advocacy work launched programs for newly deaf individuals across the state. Jonas finally finished school and began teaching deaf children just like he always dreamed. Nora taught sign language to anyone who would listen, but usually charged cookies, and the Hale estate was no longer quiet. It was full of laughter, of movement, of life. Mercy stood in the nursery one evening, hand resting on her belly. Sunset flooded the room in gold. Jonas walked up behind her. He signed against her shoulder, What are you thinking about? She smiled softly, signed back, That silence used to frighten me. Now I hope our baby hears it too. Jonas looked at her, not with pity, not with fear, but with wonder. Why? He signed. Mercy rested her hand over his. Because some love doesn't need sound to be heard. And that was the truest thing she ever said. Read a story about silence, survival, love, and the kind of connection that doesn't need words.